The gunshot echoed through Willow Creek like the devil's own thunder, sending Faith Morales running faster than she'd ever moved in her 22 years of life. The hem of her once fine dress caught on brambles as she fled through the scrubland, the unforgiving Texas sun beating down as mercilessly as the footsteps that pursued her. "You can't hide forever, Miss Morales." The gruff voice of Elijah Blackstone, the most feared outlaw this side of the Rio Grande, carried on the wind. "Your father's debts will be paid one way or another." Faith's breath came in ragged gasps as she pushed deeper into the wilderness. Her father, God rest his soul, had died just 3 weeks prior, leaving behind nothing but gambling debts and a small ranch that Blackstone had already claimed. She'd been on her way to her aunt's home in Santa Fe when Blackstone's gang had intercepted the stagecoach. The sound of horses grew fainter as the thick underbrush swallowed her whole. When night fell, Faith collapsed against the trunk of a cottonwood tree, exhaustion claiming her as thunder rolled across the distant mountains. Rain began to fall, washing away her tears but not her fear. By morning the storm had passed, but Faith was hopelessly lost. Her once white blouse was stained with mud, her dark hair tangled with twigs and leaves. She walked for hours, following what she thought was a game trail until she stumbled upon 3 riders. Relief flooded her system until she recognized Blackstone's lieutenant, a man known only as Rattler, his face twisted in a cruel smile beneath his weather-beaten hat. "Well, look what we found, boys," he sneered, dismounting with a grace that belied his murderous nature. "Mr. Blackstone will be mighty pleased." Faith turned to flee but wasn't fast enough. Rough hands grabbed her arms, and despite her screams and struggles, she was bound with coarse rope and thrown over a saddle like a sack of grain. They made camp as dusk approached, in a small clearing bordered by pine trees. Faith was dragged from the horse and secured to a sturdy oak, the rope cutting into her wrists as Rattler tied it with unnecessary tightness. "Blackstone will be here by morning," Rattler informed her, crouching to meet her gaze. "He's got plans for you, Miss Morales. Seems he thinks a pretty wife might improve his standing with the townsfolk." "I would rather die," Faith spat, earning herself a backhand that made stars dance before her eyes. "That can be arranged too," Rattler replied coldly before rejoining his companions by the fire. The night stretched endlessly as Faith worked at her bindings, succeeding only in rubbing her wrists raw. The men drank freely, their raucous laughter cutting through the night like knives as they discussed her fate in terms that made her blood run cold. Eventually, the outlaws fell into drunken slumber, and an eerie silence descended upon the camp. Faith prayed fervently, not just for rescue but for the strength to face whatever morning might bring. As if in answer, a thick fog rolled in from the valley below, enshrouding the clearing in ghostly white. Faith strained to see through the mist, her heart leaping at the sound of approaching hoofbeats, softer than she would have expected from Blackstone's thunderous mount. The fog parted like a theater curtain, revealing a lone rider atop a magnificent palomino. In the dim light of the dying fire, Faith could make out broad shoulders beneath a worn duster, a weathered Stetson pulled low over the stranger's face. The man dismounted with fluid grace, drawing his revolver as he surveyed the scene. One of the outlaws stirred, reaching for his weapon, but the stranger's shot found him before his fingers closed around the grip. The other 2 outlaws woke to the sound, scrambling for cover, but the mysterious cowboy moved like lightning, his aim unerring. When the echoes of gunfire faded, 3 bodies lay still upon the ground. The stranger holstered his weapon and approached Faith, who pressed herself against the tree in fear. "Don't worry, miss," he said, his voice low and gentle as he knelt beside her. I ain't gonna hurt you." In the silvery moonlight that now penetrated the thinning fog, Faith saw kind eyes the color of a summer sky, set in a handsome face weathered by sun and wind. His strong hands were surprisingly gentle as he cut her bonds with a gleaming knife. "Samuel Vance," he introduced himself, helping her to her feet. "Most folks call me Sam." "Faith Morales," she replied, rubbing circulation back into her wrists. I don't know how to thank you." "No need for thanks," Sam replied, retrieving a canteen from his saddle. "Here, drink. You look like you've been through hell." Faith accepted the water gratefully, studying her rescuer as she drank. He was tall and lean, with sandy hair visible beneath his hat, and moved with the easy confidence of a man accustomed to danger. "We should move," Sam said, glancing at the dead outlaws. "Blackstone will come looking for his men, and we don't want to be here when he does." "How do you know about Blackstone?" Faith asked, suddenly suspicious. Sam's expression darkened. "Let's just say we have history. Been tracking him and his gang for nigh on 2 years now." "Are you a lawman?" A shadow crossed his face. "Used to be. Now I'm just a man with a score to settle." He helped her onto his horse before mounting behind her, one arm securely around her waist as they rode through the fog-shrouded forest. Faith was acutely aware of his solid presence at her back, the warmth of him a stark contrast to the chill night air. They rode until dawn streaked the sky with pink and gold, finally stopping at a small cabin nestled among ponderosa pines. Sam helped Faith dismount, his touch lingering perhaps a moment longer than necessary. "It's not much," he said, leading her toward the cabin, "but it's safe. Blackstone won't find you here." The cabin was simple but clean, with a stone fireplace, a rough-hewn table and chairs, and a narrow bed in one corner. Sam busied himself lighting a fire while Faith stood awkwardly, suddenly conscious of her disheveled appearance. "There's a creek out back," Sam said, as if reading her thoughts. "And I've got some spare clothes that might fit well enough until we can get you something proper." Faith blinked back unexpected tears. "Why are you helping me?" Sam straightened, his expression serious. "Because it's the right thing to do." He paused, then added more softly, "And because I know what it's like to lose everything to Blackstone." He stepped outside to tend to his horse, giving Faith privacy to wash in the creek. The cold water was revitalizing, and Sam's offered clothing, a flannel shirt and trousers rolled up at the cuffs, was blessedly clean if comically oversized. When she returned to the cabin, Sam had prepared a simple breakfast of coffee and johnnycakes. They ate in comfortable silence, the trauma of the previous night giving way to a strange, tentative peace. "Where were you headed before Blackstone's men found you?" Sam asked eventually. "Santa Fe," Faith replied. "My aunt lives there, after my father died." She trailed off, the wound still fresh. "I'm sorry about your father," Sam said, his voice gentle. "Was it Blackstone?" Faith shook her head. "No, though he might as well have pulled the trigger. My father was a gambler, and Blackstone owned the saloon where he played. When Pa couldn't pay his debts, the shame was too much. They found him with his revolver still in his hand." Sam's jaw tightened. "Blackstone has ruined many lives, mine included." "What happened?" Faith asked, then immediately regretted her prying. "I'm sorry, that's not my business." "No, it's all right," Sam said, refilling their coffee cups. "I was a deputy in Red Rock 5 years back. Blackstone and his gang rode in one night, robbed the bank. My wife Martha was there making a deposit." His voice grew tight. "She tried to stop them from taking a widow's savings. Blackstone shot her without even blinking." Faith reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. "I'm so sorry." Sam turned his hand to squeeze hers briefly before pulling away. "The marshal was in Blackstone's pocket, called it self-defense." I turned in my badge that day and swore I'd see justice done. Is that why you were in those woods last night? Been trailing Blackstone for months, Sam nodded. Lost his trail in the storm, but then heard his men making camp. Wasn't expecting to find you there. Faith smiled faintly. Divine providence, perhaps. Maybe so, Sam agreed, the corner of his mouth lifting in a half-smile that transformed his solemn face. For now, though, you should rest. We'll figure out our next move after you've had some sleep. Despite her exhaustion, Faith found sleep elusive, her mind replaying the events of the night. In the main room, she could hear Sam cleaning his firearms, the rhythmic sounds oddly comforting. Eventually, she drifted into dreamless slumber. She woke to late afternoon sunlight streaming through the cabin's single window. Sam was gone, but a note on the table informed her he'd gone hunting and would return soon. Faith used the opportunity to further clean her own clothing, which was now dry if somewhat worse for wear. Sam returned at dusk with a brace of rabbits, which he prepared with practiced efficiency. As they shared the resulting stew, Faith found herself studying him when he wasn't looking, noticing the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, the careful way he handled his utensils despite his calloused hands. "How long have you lived here?" Faith asked, gesturing to the cabin. "About a year," Sam replied. "It belonged to an old trapper who passed on, no family to claim it, so I've been calling it home." He glanced around the sparse interior. "It ain't much, but it serves its purpose." "It's lovely," Faith said sincerely. "Peaceful." "That it is," Sam agreed. "Though I don't spend much time here. Been on Blackstone's trail more often than not." "What happens when you finally catch him?" Faith asked softly. Sam's expression hardened. "Justice happens." And then the question seemed to catch him off guard. "I haven't thought much beyond that point," he admitted. "Perhaps it's time you did," Faith suggested gently. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of approaching horses. Sam was on his feet in an instant, gun drawn. "Stay inside," he ordered, moving to the window and peering out cautiously. His shoulders relaxed slightly. "It's all right. It's just Hank Turner, the rancher from the valley. Good man." Faith followed Sam outside to meet the newcomer's Hank, a grizzled man in his 50s, and two younger cowboys. "Sam," Hank greeted him grimly. "Trouble's brewing. Blackstone's in a fury over his dead men. He's offering $500 for information on who killed them and another $500 for a girl matching this lady's description." Sam's expression darkened. "How many men does he have with him?" "At least a dozen," Hank replied. "They're combing the foothills. Won't be long before they start looking up this way." Sam nodded, decision made. "Faith needs to get to Santa Fe. Can you help?" Hank shook his head. "Blackstone's got men watching the roads, but I might have another idea. My sister runs a dress shop in Copper Creek, 3 days' ride west of here. Faith could stay with her until things cool down." "Copper Creek," Sam repeated thoughtfully. "Isn't that where Judge Patterson holds court?" "The very same," Hank confirmed. "Most honest judge in the territory." "If you've got evidence against Blackstone." "I've been gathering it for years," Sam said. "Witnesses, bank records, everything." Faith looked between the men. "You mean to bring him to legal justice, not the other kind?" Sam met her gaze steadily. "I want him to hang by the law, not by my hand. That's what Martha would have wanted." Something warm unfurled in Faith's chest at his words. "We can leave at first light," Sam decided. "Faith, pack whatever you need. It'll be a hard ride." The men discussed routes and supplies while Faith returned to the cabin, her mind racing. The prospect of parting from Sam filled her with an unexpected sadness. In just one day, he had become a fixed point in her tumultuous world, a source of strength and comfort she was reluctant to relinquish. That night, As Sam spread his bedroll before the fire, insisting Faith take the bed, she found herself asking, "Will you come to Copper Creek after you've seen the judge?" In the flickering firelight, something vulnerable flashed across Sam's face. "Would you want me to?" "Yes," Faith answered without hesitation. "Very much." Sam's smile was slow but genuine. "Then I reckon you'll see me there." They set out before dawn, riding double on Sam's Palomino. Hank and his men had departed the previous evening to spread false information about Faith heading east, hoping to draw Blackstone's attention away from their actual route. The journey was arduous, but not unpleasant. Faith found herself growing accustomed to the rhythm of the horse beneath them, to the solid presence of Sam at her back. They talked as they rode about their childhoods, their dreams before tragedy had altered their courses, their favorite books and foods. In the quiet moments, Faith marveled at how quickly familiarity had developed between them, a sense of connection that defied their brief acquaintance. They camped the first night in a sheltered canyon, their fire small and well hidden. As they shared a simple meal of jerky and hardtack, Sam taught Faith to identify constellations in the vast expanse of sky overhead. "My father used to say the stars were windows to heaven," Faith murmured, leaning back on her elbows, "that our loved ones watch over us through them." Sam was silent for a long moment. "I'd like to believe that," he finally said, "that Martha can see I'm trying to do right by her memory." "I think she'd be proud of the man you are," Faith said softly. Sam's gaze, when it met hers, was intense. For a breathless moment, Faith thought he might kiss her, but he simply reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch feather light. "We should get some rest," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "Long day tomorrow." The second day brought them through increasingly rugged terrain. Mid-afternoon, as they forded a shallow river, the Palomino stumbled on a slick rock, nearly throwing them both. Sam's arm tightened around Faith's waist, steadying her as he soothed the horse with quiet words. "You all right?" he asked, his breath warm against her ear. "Yes," Faith replied, acutely aware of how close they were, of his hand splayed protectively across her midriff. "Thank you." They made camp that night in an abandoned line shack, grateful for the shelter as rain began to fall. The close quarters meant they sat shoulder to shoulder before the small fireplace, sharing a tin cup of coffee as thunder rolled overhead. "Tell me about your home," Sam said. "Before all this." Faith smiled wistfully. "It wasn't much, a small ranch near Willow Creek. 10 acres, a little house my grandfather built. We had a few cattle, some chickens. My mother grew the prettiest roses you've ever seen." Her smile faded. "After she died, Pa started gambling, said the house was too quiet without her. And now Blackstone has it," Sam said grimly. Faith nodded. "Everything except my mother's locket." She touched the silver pendant at her throat. "I always wear it. It's all I have left of her." Sam reached out hesitantly, his fingers brushing the locket. "She must have been beautiful like you." The compliment, spoken so simply, brought warmth to Faith's cheeks. "She was kind. That's what I remember most. She always said kindness was more important than beauty." "She was right," Sam agreed softly. His hand had not moved from where it rested lightly against her collarbone, and Faith found herself leaning subtly into his touch. Their eyes met, and this time Sam did not look away. "Faith," he murmured, her name a question and a prayer all at once. "Yes," she whispered, answering the unspoken. His kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if he expected her to pull away. When she did not, instead, she raised a hand to his cheek and leaned closer. The kiss deepened, becoming something urgent and necessary. Faith had been kissed before, awkward courtship gestures from local boys, but nothing like this sense of coming home, of finding something she hadn't known she was missing. When they parted, Sam rested his forehead against hers, his breathing uneven. "I shouldn't have done that," he said, though he made no move to create distance between them. "I'm glad you did," Faith replied, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "Aren't you?" Sam's smile was rueful. "Gladder than I've been about anything in a long time." "But Faith, your life is complicated enough without what?" she interrupted. "Without finding someone who makes me feel safe, who makes me remember there's good in this world even after everything that's happened." Sam took her hands in his expression serious. "You've been through a terrible ordeal. I don't want to take advantage of that, of you." "Samuel Vance," Faith said firmly, "I may have been tied to a tree when you found me, but I am not a damsel without a mind of her own. I know what I want." His laugh was soft and warm. "I'm beginning to see that." He brushed his lips against her knuckles. "We should sleep. Tomorrow will be another long day." Though they retired to separate blankets on opposite sides of the small cabin, Faith fell asleep with the memory of his kiss warming her from within, a small smile playing on her lips. Dawn brought clear skies and renewed determination. They made good time, reaching the outskirts of Copper Creek by late afternoon of the third day. The town was larger than Faith had expected, nestled in a picturesque valley with mountains rising majestically to the west. "I'll take you to Sarah Turner's shop first," Sam said as they rode down the main street. "Hank sent a telegram yesterday to let her know you're coming." Sarah Turner proved to be a jolly, no-nonsense woman in her 40s, with Hank's same direct gaze and practical manner. She welcomed Faith warmly, clucking in disapproval at her borrowed men's clothing. "We'll have you looking respectable in no time," she assured Faith, already measuring her with expert eyes. "I've got a spare room all made up for you, too. You're welcome to stay as long as you need." "Thank you," Faith said sincerely. "I don't know how to repay your kindness." "Nonsense," Sarah waved off her gratitude. "Any friend of my brother's is a friend of mine. Besides," she added with a knowing glance between Faith and Sam, "it looks to me like you two found something special out there in the wilderness. That's payment enough for a romantic soul like me." Faith blushed, but Sam's hand found hers, his fingers intertwining with her own in silent confirmation. "I need to see Judge Patterson," Sam said. "My evidence against Blackstone is in a lockbox at the bank. With luck, we can have an arrest warrant by morning." "Be careful," Faith urged, sudden fear gripping her. "Blackstone has eyes everywhere." Sam's smile was reassuring. "I've been careful for 5 years. One more day won't hurt." He kissed her briefly, heedless of Sarah's delighted observation. "I'll be back before you know it." But Sam did not return that evening nor the next morning. By noon, Faith was frantic with worry. Sarah's attempts to reassure her fell on deaf ears. "Something's wrong," Faith insisted. "Sam wouldn't just disappear, not without word." "Judge Patterson is a busy man," Sarah reasoned. "Perhaps their meeting is taking longer than expected." Faith shook her head. "I'm going to the courthouse to find out." Sarah sighed, recognizing the determination in the younger woman's eyes. "At least change first," she said, gesturing to the simple but elegant blue dress she'd altered for Faith. "If you're going to confront a judge, you should look the part." Properly attired, with her dark hair neatly arranged, Faith made her way to the imposing stone courthouse at the center of town. The clerk informed her that Judge Patterson had indeed met with Samuel Vance the previous afternoon, but that the meeting had concluded before sundown. "He was headed to the bank next," the clerk added helpfully. "Said something about retrieving documents." At the bank, the manager confirmed that Sam had accessed his lockbox but had seemed agitated upon examining its contents. "Said something was missing," the manager recalled. "Left in quite a hurry." Faith's sense of dread deepened. "And you haven't seen him since?" The manager shook his head. Not hide nor hair. Increasingly desperate, Faith checked the livery stable, the hotel, and finally the sheriff's office, where she found a deputy dozing at his desk. Samuel Vance, the deputy repeated, scratching his chin. Can't say I've seen him. Sheriff's out of town till tomorrow, though. He might know something. Faith was about to leave when she noticed a wanted poster tacked to the wall behind the deputy, Elijah Blackstone's cruel face staring back at her. The reward for his capture, a substantial sum. Has anyone reported seeing Blackstone in the area? Faith asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The deputy shrugged. Rumors, nothing more. Someone thought they saw him at the Silver Spur Saloon last night, but by the time I got there, if he'd been there, he was gone. The Silver Spur Saloon stood at the edge of town, its weathered facade suggesting it catered to a rougher clientele than the more respectable establishments on Main Street. Faith hesitated only briefly before pushing through its doors, ignoring the startled looks her presence elicited from the afternoon drinkers. The barkeep, a burly man with an impressive mustache, raised an eyebrow at her approach. "This ain't no place for a lady," he stated flatly. "I'm looking for someone," Faith replied, undeterred. "Samuel Vance, tall, sandy hair, blue eyes, would have been here last night or perhaps mentioned by others." The barkeep's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. "Don't know the name," he said, a shade too quickly. "Please," Faith leaned forward, lowering her voice. "He's in danger. I know Blackstone was here last night." The barkeep glanced around nervously before motioning her closer. "Lady, if you're mixed up with Blackstone, you'd best get out of town. Word is, he's got a score to settle and he ain't particular about who gets hurt in the process." "Where can I find him?" Faith demanded. "You got a death wish," the barkeep hissed. "Blackstone's holed up at the old Hargrove place, 3 miles north of town. But if your friend crossed him, he's probably already dead." Faith's blood ran cold, but she forced her voice to remain steady. "Thank you. I never told you nothing," the barkeep called after her as she hurried from the saloon. Faith returned to Sarah's shop, her mind racing. She couldn't involve the deputy if Blackstone had as much influence here as he had in Willow Creek. It might only make matters worse. She needed help, but more importantly, she needed a plan. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, alarmed by Faith's expression. "Did you find Sam?" "No," Faith replied grimly, "but I know who has him." Quickly, she explained what she'd learned. Sarah's face paled. "The Hargrove place is bad business. Old man Hargrove died under suspicious circumstances last winter, and the property's been empty since. It's remote with good visibility in all directions. If Blackstone is there with your Sam." "I need to help him," Faith stated, her resolve hardening, "but I can't do it alone." Sarah studied her thoughtfully. "My brother left 2 of his men in town, Ben and Charlie. Good boys, handy with a gun. And I know a few local men who have lost money or loved ones to Blackstone over the years. They might be willing to help." By nightfall, they had assembled a small force of 6 men, armed and ready to ride. Faith, now dressed in trousers and a jacket borrowed from Sarah's youngest brother, checked the revolver Ben had provided her. "You sure you want to come along, Miss Morales?" Charlie asked dubiously. "Could be dangerous." "I'm sure," Faith replied, meeting his gaze steadily. "Sam risked his life to save mine. I won't abandon him now." The plan was simple but risky. Ben and 2 of the locals would approach from the south, creating a diversion. Charlie, Faith, and the others would use the distraction to enter from the north, hopefully locating Sam in the process. They rode out under cover of darkness, a fog rolling in from the river providing additional concealment. As they drew near the Hargrove property, Faith's heart pounded so loudly she was certain it would give them away. The house loomed ahead, a single light burning in the downstairs window. Two men stood guard on the porch, smoking and talking in low voices. In the barn off to the side, more lights flickered, suggesting additional occupants. "Sam will be in the house," Faith whispered to Charlie. "Blackstone would want to keep him close." Charlie nodded. "We wait for the signal. When all hell breaks loose to the south, we move." The minutes stretched endlessly until finally, the crack of gunfire erupted from the direction of the main road. The guards on the porch jumped to attention, drawing their weapons and moving toward the sound. Men poured from the barn, shouting in confusion. "Now," Charlie hissed, and their group surged forward, Faith's focus narrowed to the house ahead, everything else falling away. She followed Charlie up the steps and through the door, gun raised, fear for Sam overriding her own safety. The front room was empty, but voices came from further inside. Charlie gestured for the others to check upstairs while he and Faith moved toward the sound. They found themselves outside a closed door, the murmur of conversation now clear. "Your evidence is gone, Vance," came a cold voice Faith recognized as Blackstone's. "Burned to ash. The judge won't help you without it. No one will." "You're wrong," Sam's voice replied, strained but defiant. "There are witnesses. People are tired of living in fear of you, Blackstone." A harsh laugh. "People are weak. They'll say whatever keeps them alive, and you won't be saying anything at all once I'm done with you." Charlie met Faith's eyes, counting down silently. On 3, he kicked open the door, firing immediately at the figure standing over Sam, who was tied to a chair, his face bruised but his eyes alert. Blackstone ducked the shot, drawing his own weapon with remarkable speed. Faith fired without thinking, her bullet catching the outlaw in the shoulder, spinning him around. Charlie's second shot found its mark and Blackstone fell, clutching his chest. Faith rushed to Sam, using a knife from her belt to cut his bonds. "Are you all right?" she asked frantically, hands gentle on his battered face. "Faith," Sam breathed, disbelief and joy mingling in his voice. "What are you doing here? How did you find me?" "Did you really think I'd let you face him alone?" Faith replied, helping him to his feet. "I love you, Samuel Vance. That means I fight for you just as you fought for me." Sam stared at her for a heartbeat before pulling her into a fierce embrace, heedless of his injuries. "I love you too," he murmured against her hair. "More than I thought possible." A groan from the floor interrupted their reunion. Blackstone was still alive, though barely, blood spreading across his shirt front. "It's over, Blackstone," Sam said, keeping Faith close to his side as they faced the fallen outlaw. "Your reign of terror ends today." Blackstone's laugh was wet with blood. "You think this changes anything? There will always be men like me." "Perhaps," Sam acknowledged, "but there will always be men and women willing to stand against them, too." They bound Blackstone's wounds enough to keep him alive for justice, then helped Charlie secure the remaining gang members who had been captured in the firefight outside. By dawn, they were riding back to Copper Creek, Blackstone and his men under guard. The town gave them a hero's welcome. Judge Patterson, alerted to their return, convened an emergency court session, where survivors of Blackstone's previous crimes came forward to testify, their courage bolstered by the outlaw's capture. The evidence Sam had gathered, though partially destroyed, was supplemented by account books found at the Hargrove place, documenting years of extortion and theft. The verdict was swift and unanimous. Elijah Blackstone would hang for his crimes. In the aftermath, as Sam recovered from his ordeal, Faith stayed by his side. Sarah Turner's spare room remained empty, as Faith chose instead to keep vigil in Sam's hotel room, propriety be damned. "What will you do now?" Faith asked one evening as they sat on the hotel's balcony, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. "Your quest for justice is complete." Sam took her hand, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. "I've been thinking about that. I never planned for after, but now." He met her gaze, his eyes full of promise. "Now I find myself with reasons to look forward, not back." "What reasons might those be?" Faith asked, her heart quickening. Sam smiled, reaching into his pocket to produce a simple gold band. "Faith Morales, I know we've known each other but a short while, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Will you marry me? Build a new life with me, wherever that may lead?" Faith's answer was in her kiss, in the tears of joy that spilled down her cheeks, in the way she whispered yes against his lips like a sacred vow. They were married 2 weeks later in Copper Creek's small church, Sarah Turner beaming proudly from the front pew, alongside her brother Hank and his cowboys who had helped save Sam's life. Judge Patterson himself performed the ceremony, his usually stern face softened with genuine pleasure. With Blackstone's bounty split between them and the other men who had helped capture the outlaw, Sam and Faith had enough money to start fresh. They chose a small ranch near Copper Creek, with good water and fertile soil, a place where they could build their dreams together. On their wedding night, as moonlight spilled through the windows of their new home, Sam held Faith close, his fingers tangling in her dark hair. "When I found you bound to that tree," he murmured, "I thought I was saving you. I never imagined you'd end up saving me too." Faith smiled, her hand resting over his heart. Perhaps that's what love is, saving each other day by day in all the ways that matter. And as their lips met in the silver light, Faith knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, no longer bound by the past, but free to forge their future in the wide, open country of possibility that stretched before them.